Right, pick up that bag of rice in your larder. Yeah, the one you use for curry night or perhaps the easy cook stuff for a quick midweek meal. It looks innocent enough, doesn't it? Just rice. Maybe long grain, maybe basmati. Usually with a picture of a steaming bowl that suggests comfort and simplicity. But what if I told you that innocent bag of grain is hiding secrets the entire multi-billion-pound rice industry desperately hopes you never, ever find out? What if that staple you fed your family for years, the one you thought was the safest bet in the shop, is actually a sneaky little delivery system for things that definitely should not be on your dinner plate? We're talking about contaminants that don't wash off, marketing fluff that hides blatant fraud, and a complete lack of transparency that would make a dodgy car salesman blush. You trust it because it's rice. It's been around forever. But trust me, once we pull back the shiny packaging, you're going to look at that bag of Tesco long grain very differently. Today, we're busting the rice game wide open. You're going to find out the shocking truth about what's really in that bag you buy every single week. I'll show you exactly which household names are the worst offenders, backed by laboratory data and expert insights that will blow your mind. We'll break down the sneaky tactics corporations use to offload contaminated or faked products onto unsuspecting British shoppers. You'll learn how to navigate the supermarket aisle like a pro, knowing exactly what to look for on the label, and more importantly, what isn't there. We're going to completely rework how you think about buying, cooking, and eating this everyday staple. And you definitely want to stick around, because the most jaw-dropping revelation, the sheer scale of the deception involving one of the UK's most beloved rice varieties, comes right near the end, and it is an absolute proper scandal. Before we name and shame, we need a quick reality check on what makes a grain of rice good or rubbish. At its heart, rice should be the simplest food on the planet. One ingredient, rice, grown, harvested, and dried. When it's done right, it's brilliant. An affordable, nutritious staple that has fed humanity for millennia. There's nothing wrong with rice itself, but the modern industrial machine has introduced two massive, hidden problems that no packet ever mentions. Think of quality rice like a perfectly tuned, classic British sports car. Minimal fuss, reliable, does exactly what it's supposed to do. The industrialized version? It's more like a modern, mass-produced runaround that's been built as cheaply as possible, potentially using contaminated parts, and then given a glossy respray to hide the rust. The first issue is contamination, specifically with a nasty substance called inorganic arsenic, which is a known human carcinogen. Rice plants are like giant sponges for arsenic. Because they are typically grown in flooded fields, they absorb it from the soil and water far more efficiently than other grains. And here's the kicker. The level of contamination depends enormously on where the rice was grown, information that is infuriatingly absent from almost every bag in your local supermarket. The second issue is flat-out fraud. Premium varieties like basmati and jasmine command a premium price, which makes them prime targets for adulteration. It's the equivalent of buying a genuine leather jacket only to find out the sleeves are cheap pleather. Unscrupulous suppliers cut the expensive stuff with cheaper, visually identical varieties, pocketing the difference while you pay top whack. It's not a mistake. It's a calculated, systemic ripoff. We've spent months digging through lab reports, tracking corporate ownership, and analyzing consumer feedback to find out exactly how deep this goes. We're about to break down the brands that are failing British consumers, from budget supermarket lines to household names you probably trust implicitly. The truth isn't on the label, but it is in the data. Let's get stuck in. Let's get right into the thick of it and talk about what's actually sitting in your kitchen cupboards. We're starting with the store brands that practically everyone buys because inflation has hammered our wallets, and we're all trying to save a quid where we can. Look at Tesco Creamfields, Asda Just Essentials, or Morrison's Savers. When you buy budget long grain or easy cook rice from these value tiers, you're looking at a rock-bottom price. But that cheap ticket is tied directly to a lack of supply chain clarity. Value lines are sourced globally from commodity streams, which frequently means regions with historically elevated arsenic soil profiles. Because these massive supermarket chains operate on ultra-thin margins for basic essentials, they source from wherever the grain is cheapest at that exact minute. Independent consumer investigations, including persistent field alerts from the consumer group which highlight that anonymous commodity streams are the hardest to verify for heavy metal loads. For multi-billion-pound retail operations with massive buying leverage, choosing to pack completely anonymous grain with zero consumer-facing contaminant data means you are buying completely blind. The rice cooks up all right, maybe a bit chalky or starchy, but the real cost is hidden. It is a classic corporate shell game where the true origin changes from one batch to the next, whilst the packaging stays exactly the same. Next up, let's chat about a brand that practically defines the British supermarket aisle, Ben's Original, which many of us still remember as Uncle Ben's. Owned by the global giant Mars Inc., this brand carries a massive health halo, particularly their whole grain brown rice and microwavable pouches. You see it in every Tesco, Sainsbury's, and Morrison's in the land. People trust it implicitly because it's been around for generations. But here is the major issue with mass-market pre-packaged rice of this scale: a profound lack of transparency regarding specific regional origin and internal testing. A bag might say produce of more than one country or feature a vague blend description. Why does this matter? Because without a definitive named region, the consumer has no way to cross-reference academic and laboratory maps of arsenic distribution. When laboratory platforms like Consumer Lab test mainstream whole grain products, brown rice variants consistently display elevated levels of inorganic arsenic compared to their white counterparts. This is because the chemical binds heavily to the outer bran layer. Ben's Original has all the capital and logistics on Earth to selectively source exclusively from low-risk zones and publish batch-tested chemical certificates for every consumer to see. Choosing instead to keep the public in the dark while charging premium brand prices for basic whole grains is a proper letdown. You think you're doing your body a massive favor by swapping to whole grains, but without strict origin transparency, that healthy choice is a bit of a gamble. University of Sheffield, if you think you're safe just because you avoid the raw grains and stick to convenience, think again. Let's take a look at the massive explosion of supermarket microwave pouches. Think of the standard store brand versions found in Aldi's Worldwide Foods range or Lidl's Harvest Basket. These micro pouches are an absolute lifesaver when you come home knackered after a long shift and just want food in 2 minutes. But that lightning-fast convenience represents the absolute most heavily processed end of the entire category. To get a grain of rice to cook in 120 seconds flat inside a plastic bag, it has to undergo aggressive pre-cooking, industrial dehydration, and then it's blast-packed with processing agents. When you look at the seasoned versions, like Mexican-style, savory, or egg-fried, the ingredient list completely spirals. What should be a single-ingredient clean carbohydrate turns into a cocktail of industrial vegetable oils, yeast extracts, stabilizers, and massive amounts of sodium. For older adults keeping an eye on blood pressure, or anyone trying to cut out ultra-processed foods, these pouches are a total trap. A single pouch can easily drop a third of your daily recommended salt intake onto your plate before you've even added a main component. You are paying up to 5 or 6 times more per kilogram compared to raw rice, all for a stripped-down, salt-laden grain that has had its structural integrity completely modernized for speed. It's an expensive, hyper-processed shortcut that replaces clean nutrition with industrial convenience. If you already feel like checking your own larder right now, hit that subscribe button, because the systemic stuff we are uncovering next gets even harsher. Let's talk about the absolute gold standard of health halos: organic rice. You walk into Waitrose or Sainsbury's, spot an organic certification logo on a packet of brown long grain, and gladly pay double the price because you assume it's completely pristine. But here is a massive agricultural revelation that the organic industry completely glosses over. Organic certification looks at what pesticides a farmer sprays today, but it cannot change the fundamental geology of the earth beneath the crop. Because arsenic is a chemical element naturally occurring in the Earth's crust, and heavily concentrated by decades of historic industrial pollution and older agricultural treatments. It remains bound in the soil indefinitely. It does not break down over time like modern synthetic chemicals do. When a field is flooded to grow organic rice, those roots draw up the legacy arsenic just as efficiently as a conventional farm would. Testing data compiled by global food research groups shows that certified organic rice frequently carries identical heavy metal profiles to conventional rice grown in the same geographic valley. Buying organic absolutely helps protect the planet from synthetic pesticide runoff, which is brilliant, but believing it acts as a magical shield against heavy metal contamination is a pure marketing myth. The luxury price premium gives you an absolute sense of safety, but the lab equipment doesn't care about a glossy green sticker. Now, we have to talk about the absolute heavy hitter on the shelf. The product that is the single biggest favorite in British households, standard long grain white rice. Whether it's a massive 5 kilograms bag from an estate brand or a standard packet from Asda, this is the default baseline carbohydrate of the nation. The industry sells this stuff as an enriched product. But let's look at what enriched actually means in industrial terms. White rice is made by taking a natural grain and aggressively milling it down to strip away both the outer hull and the nutrient-dense germ. This process completely deletes the fiber, the natural B vitamins, and the core minerals, leaving behind nothing but a naked, starchy white core that is essentially pure, fast-digesting carbohydrate. Because this leaves the grain nutritionally hollowed out, factories spray a liquid mixture of synthetic vitamins, usually iron, niacin, and folic acid, back onto the moving conveyor belts of white rice so they can legally slap the word enriched on the front of the packet. It's the exact equivalent of someone nicking your wallet, handing you back a couple of quid for bus fare, and expecting a thank you. You are buying a structurally stripped, chemically reconstructed commodity grain designed solely for maximum shelf life. While the industry frames the replacement of a few cheap synthetic nutrients as a premium health benefit, but the absolute peak of the entire rice scandal, the most trusted, most premium variety on the British market, belongs to the basmati trade. This is where the line between standard market opacity and outright food fraud completely blurs. Basmati is the king of aromatic grains, prized across the UK for its delicate elongation, nutty fragrance, and fluffy texture. Because genuine basmati can only be grown in specific geographical regions at the base of the Himalayas in India and Pakistan, and requires meticulous aging, it commands a massive price premium. And where there is a fat profit margin, there is always rampant deception. The UK Food Standards Agency previously executed massive retail audits on basmati packets across British shops, using advanced DNA fingerprinting technology to check what was inside. The results were an absolute shambles. Up to 1 in 3 samples of retail basmati were found to be heavily adulterated. Unscrupulous global suppliers were systematically cutting the premium basmati with cheap, low-grade long-grain varieties that look virtually identical to the naked eye, pocketing millions in pure unearned profit. The industry has turned a premium heritage grain into a high-tech scientific arms race, where DNA testing is the only way to catch rogue packers who blend in fake crossbreeds. You walk into the shop, pay a premium price for what you think is authentic heritage grain for your dinner, and a third of the bag is nothing but cheap, scentless bulk filler. It is a massive silent ripoff occurring right under our noses on standard British supermarket shelves. And now, what it was worth watching all the way through for. We have waded through the murky waters of industrial shortcuts, heavy metal contamination, and DNA faking scandals. So let's talk about the good stuff. Let's look at the options that restore your faith in what you're putting in your shopping trolley. There are brands and specific types of rice out there that are genuinely, verifiably doing things right, prioritizing clear origins, rigorous quality standards, and pure ingredients. Swapping out the dodgy commodity bags for these clean alternatives is how you take back control of your kitchen. We'll start with the most accessible, mainstream option that you can find on almost any high street in Britain. California-grown Calrose or sushi rice, often sold under reputable global or specialist labels like Nishiki or Yutaka, available at major supermarkets like Sainsbury's, Tesco, and Ocado. If you want to bypass the high arsenic soil history of certain mass commodity growing regions entirely, changing your geography is the single most powerful move you can make. The Sacramento Valley in California has a completely different agricultural past, meaning its soils do not carry the same legacy of older industrial chemical residues. When consumer advocacy labs run multi-panel heavy metal checks, California-grown medium grain and sushi rice varieties consistently score beautifully, coming in significantly cleaner than anonymous mass-market blends. In the kitchen, this stuff is a joy. Because it's a medium grain, it has a naturally higher starch content that makes it beautifully plump, tender, and slightly sticky. It is absolutely perfect for everything from Japanese dishes to weeknight risottos. It costs a bit more than the absolute cheapest store-brand value bags, clocking in at roughly 20 to 30 pence per serving, but that minimal difference is entirely justified by the peace of mind that comes with a named lower-risk origin. It is a solid, clean baseline option that fits a standard family budget. Next up is an aromatic option that is an absolute staple of quality sourcing, authentic Thai jasmine rice, specifically bags carrying the official Green Thai Home Mali government certification seal. You can spot these premium bags from brands like Tilda or Royal Umbrella on the world food aisles of Tesco, Asda, and Morrison's. The Thai Home Mali stamp isn't just a fancy marketing badge. It is a strict legal guarantee of origin and purity enforced by the Department of Foreign Trade in Thailand. To get that seal, the rice must be grown in specific northeastern provinces of Thailand, harvested during the correct season, and must consist of at least 92% pure jasmine rice, completely choking out the possibility of cheap industrial adulteration. Laboratory audits show that authentic Thai jasmine consistently averages up to 50% lower in inorganic arsenic than global commodity blends. When you cook this, the difference from cheap easy-cook long grain is immediate and physical. The natural floral aroma fills your entire kitchen, and the texture is perfectly soft with a delicate cling. It costs around 30 to 40 pence per serving, which is incredibly reasonable for a certified, pure product that hasn't been cut with mystery fillers. It is the ideal everyday switch for anyone who wants a fragrant, clean long grain without paying specialty shop prices. Now let's address the king of the British curry night, verified Indian or Pakistani basmati from an established premium brand like Tilda or Layla. Tilda, which you can find everywhere from Waitrose to Sainsbury's, has built its entire multi-decade reputation on preventing the exact kind of basmati fraud we broke down earlier. They were one of the very first companies to actively use DNA fingerprinting technology on incoming grain shipments at their milling facilities in the UK to ensure that cheap crossbreeds never make it into their packets. Because genuine basmati from the foothills of the Himalayas grows in fields irrigated by clean mountain runoff, its baseline arsenic profile is naturally lower. Tilda's Pure Basmati is a pristine, single-ingredient product that delivers exactly what it promises on the front of the bag. The sensory experience is unparalleled. The grains elongate to double their size when cooked, remaining completely separate, light, and fluffy with that classic, nutty fragrance. There is a slight caveat to keep in mind. Some independent European laboratory panels have noted that while Himalayan basmati is exceptionally low in arsenic, certain regions can show trace variations in other soil elements like cadmium. Therefore, sticking to an established British brand with rigorous, documented quality control protocols is your best defense. It sits at a slightly higher price point, but for an authentic, DNA-verified heritage grain, it is worth every single penny. Finally, for the absolute gold standard of safety and radical supply chain transparency, we have to talk about Lundberg Family Farms. While they are a premier heritage brand from across the Atlantic, their highly rated organic short grain, brown, and wild rice blends are readily available to British shoppers online via Ocado, Whole Foods Market, and specialized health food retailers. Lundberg is the undisputed standout in the entire global industry for one simple reason. They actually test every single crop lot and completely refuse to hide the data. They grow their grain sustainably in the lower arsenic Sacramento Valley and are completely transparent about their heavy metal testing results, setting a benchmark that the rest of the corporate rice world desperately tries to ignore. Their brown rice varieties are particularly unique because, despite keeping the nutrient-dense outer bran layer intact, their strict geographic cultivation means you get all the fiber and natural B vitamins without the typical heavy metal penalty associated with mass-market brown rice. The downside is obvious. It is a premium import, meaning it is the most expensive option on our list, often costing more per kilogram than standard supermarket packets. It is not an option that makes sense for every single budget, but if you have young children at home, or if you eat rice as the absolute core foundation of your daily diet, investing in a brand that completely removes the guesswork from food safety is the ultimate peace of mind choice. If you want to pull out your phone and screenshot something, let it be these 5 rules because this is your ultimate toolkit for navigating the supermarket aisle without getting played by corporate slickers. Rule 1. Buy your rice exclusively by its named geographical origin. If the bag simply says, product of more than one country, or gives you an anonymous bulk description, leave it sitting on the shelf at Asda or Tesco. Look instead for clear labels specifying California, the foothills of the Himalayas for basmati, or the specific northern provinces of Thailand for jasmine. Rule 2. Look for brands that actively talk about tracking and checking their supply chains, particularly established names like Tilda or Layla who use advanced batch verification, because a company willing to protect its pedigree is always safer than a completely anonymous packer. Rule 3. Dump the traditional absorption cooking method and cook your rice exactly like pasta. Boil the grain in a massive excess of water, using 6 to 10 parts water to 1 part rice, and then pour the excess water straight down the sink when it is cooked through. This single kitchen hack washes away up to 60% of the soluble heavy metal load without costing you a single extra penny. Rule 4. Break up your dinner routine and vary your baseline carbohydrates. Do not let rice dominate the base of every single meal in your household, rotate in ancient grains like quinoa, pearled barley, farro, or standard porridge oats, which naturally absorb significantly fewer trace elements from wet farming soils and instantly add solid nutritional variety to your diet. Rule 5. Be deeply skeptical of premium aromatic varieties that look suspiciously cheap. If you spot a massive bag of basmati or jasmine in a discount tier that is priced way below the market average, remember the Food Standards Agency DNA tracking data. That discount is an absolute warning sign that the packet has been heavily cut with cheap, scentless bulk filler when you strip away the comforting imagery and the glossy packaging. The modern industrial rice trade operates on a clever system of deliberate obscurity. The massive corporations running the global supply chain know that if they hide the specific origin, conceal the trace laboratory numbers, and keep the consumer completely blind to basic cooking adjustments, they can continue offloading cheap commodity grains at premium prices. Stopping this cycle doesn't mean giving up your favorite midweek curry or abandoning rice entirely. It simply requires a permanent shift in how you shop, look at a label, and handle the grain in your own kitchen. By choosing named, lower-risk regions, buying from trusted brands with transparent tracking, and boiling the grain like pasta, you completely remove yourself from the category of an uninformed shopper and become an active, smart consumer who refuses to be fooled by basic marketing tricks. Thanks for hanging out and digging into the data with me today. Your time is massively appreciated. If you have a friend who cooks big batches of rice for their kids every single week, please share this video with them right now, because getting this simple water-draining trick into their kitchen is a massive, practical win for their family's health. I want to know what the situation is in your house right now, so drop a comment below and tell me which specific brand of rice is sitting in your kitchen larder at this exact moment. If you want to keep lifting the lid on the everyday supermarket items that are secretly ripping you off, click on the video link on your screen right now, where we break down the absolute chaos happening